back in moment.
Use. It's a joyful enough thing to be bang on schedule. I tell you, I'm looking 9 o'clock. It says on the running order, Raymond Jackson is the name. Charity registration. He's from the Confederation of Community Groups. I'm Rowan Hand. You're very welcome. How are you doing, Raymond? Good to see you. And you're a Newry man. You're of the Newry community, and you head up the community group over there.
Yeah.
You're the chief executive. What does a chief executive of the Confederation of Community Groups do?
As little as possible, and hope to get away with it, you know.
That is the greatest. That is the greatest lie ever told in this studio, because no Jackson of Newry has ever done as little as possible. You're constantly giving. Your whole family's involved in community.
Well, a lot of my dad has been involved with the Meadow and Armour Road Community Association for I don't know, 40, 50 years. I suppose.
Orla's in the town centre, the city centre, the Chamber of Commerce. Brendan is there with the Credit Union. You're grand people.
Yeah.
It's a joy to know you. The greatest thing about him as well, I haven't told you yet, he's a Rooney's Meadow man. And of course, the Rooney's Meadow produced men of greatness. He was Oria Road, I was Derrybeg Drive, so there you are. We're looking at your work we're very strong in the community sector in Newry.
Yeah, Newry and Mourne, in particular in Newry City, a very, very strong community, always have been, really. And in fact, the Confederation was formed about over 40 years ago now in Newry, because there was a number of sort of activists in the Newry area that wanted to form some kind of
There's a name comes to mind, Tommy McGrath.
Tommy McGrath was
and the centre
yeah.
is called after him.
That's right,
and
indeed.
Tommy was a great counsellor, a great man of the people. And there were all sorts of people then. Great people, Tommy McGrath, and then there was Bricky.
Tommy McGrath lived about 3 doors from me, actually.
Did he?
You know?
Just
yeah,
down the way.
road as well.
Goodness gracious. Were you down? Were you halfway down, close to the cut? That
Yes,
went down
yes,
to the green.
Going towards that way. Yeah,
well, I was
right close to that. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, I was coming on my bike once as a boy. I was that size, and I went round that corner too fast, and I went off over the top of the handlebars and into the corner of the house, and I've still got the scar to prove it. So Tommy was there, and then from High Street we had men like Bricky McKevitt. That's another name to be remembered.
There's been an awful lot of people involved in community development the whole way along, really, and it's still very, very prevalent at the minute. In fact, we've got a large number of people involved in the community volunteer sector throughout Newry and Mourne, indeed.
And you stand on I know it's a cliche, but you stand on the shoulders of the giants, don't you?
That's right, yeah. We wouldn't be here anyway. None of us would be here without the predecessors, you know.
People of vision.
Indeed, yeah.
And that was what Newry grew on.
Yeah.
You know, we'd never be a city today if we hadn't had the vision to go and do it.
Nice people and proud people, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what they said, you know. And I always remember the coming together of the aspiration for cityhood. Men like Gerard O'Hare, men like Fergal McCormack there, trying to push the thing forward. People who knew that it was better to look over the horizon that bit and see the possibilities.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people would feel that, but even with enterprise and all the rest, and a lot of people have done very well in Newry, it's said there's an awful lot of people who are still struggling in Newry, and there's still a lot of poverty in Newry. There's also still another need for a collective action on behalf of communities, etc., in order to drag in services that they should be entitled to, etc., etc.
But the beautiful thing is that once upon a time, we may not even have known the questions, never mind the answers. Now we know both, and we know how to get it.
Well, to be honest with you, community development is part of that, is that we respect that people within local communities have the knowledge and it's the skills, and it's a matter of just empowering the people in order to be able to have them, to get them to engage with others in order to bring back things that are going to help their local communities, you know.
It's almost as though the folks see communities as an extension of the family.
That's right. In a lot of respect, you would have some football associations like a GAA, etc., which we very much along those lines. But also even in local community associations, it's an extended family. There are people there, there are peers there that people would look up to, that would give them community education programs, etc., to run through community centres, through local community houses, etc., etc. You know, and hopefully groups like ourselves as well, who are trying to empower people. You know,
absolutely empowering. I was around at the beginning, before it all started to happen. Goodness gracious!
Are you that old? Eh?
I am very old. You know, I remember the Newry Urban Council meeting in the town hall in a smoke-filled boardroom in the town hall.
I'm glad that's before my time now, Rob.
Oh, you've got to believe it.
But to be fair, Newry, the Confederation of Newry, it's Newryan District, which is
Newryan
District, on the old district.
Absolutely. You know? But I remember then something as simple as one's association with the Shamrocks, the football club.
Yeah, well, we don't like to talk about them from the matter. We're the Bosco GFC.
Oh, I know this. Do you know something? I'm not even sure there was a Bosco GFC when I was playing right half forward for the Shamrocks as a boy.
Yeah. Well, see, the actual, there may have been the Mitchells at the time, because the Mitchells were formed out of Bosco.
Did you mention the M word? You have red jerseys, the Mitchells, do you?
Red and white. No,
red
that's,
and white.
yeah, we're yellow and blue, they're red and white, and these are green and white.
And we were green and white. And then, of course, sin of all sins, but joy of all joys, we fraternized with Newry Town. There we were as well, in the old Nissen hut there that was the social club. We played billiards in it and snooker in it. We drank pints in it and we laughed together. So, and then the various communities were starting to flower throughout Newry. Newry was on the move.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact the Confederation was formed really as far as 1972. And as I said, it was community activists that wanted to get together to better the communities and to raise awareness of different issues, etc. You know, so it's a long time going, and as community development is very, very strong, always has been in Newry and Mourne.
How would you quantify, Raymond, if you would, how would you quantify the benefit that has come to the modern Newry from our ethos of community over the years?
It'll be hard to put a sort of economic benefit on it, but I mean, certainly the people are, as I say, it's a proud people, and it always has been. But we would say the engagement of local communities is way, way ahead. I would know from other community associations, etc., the length and breadth of the north, and Newry would be seen as one of the sort of flagships. In fact, Ballaball House, which is our social enterprise, way before the time, it was the first purpose-built social enterprise of that kind in the north, you know. So in that sense, Newry has been sort of on the forefront. But also in relation to the number of community groups, the sort of the governance procedures and some of those community groups, etc., it's really well advanced compared to other places, you know, as well.
Yeah, and this is something that was recognised over the entire time of direct rule here. When you had secretaries of state coming in, men like Rhodes Boyson coming down. Rhodes used to say, like a man that has his name on ladder, I know he's going to be here for a while. And that was him. He was a great working class man. And Rhodes Boyson was here. He would have come to Newry and would have opened this, that, and the other, including the iTech Park on the Armagh Road, for goodness sake. So we were well regarded within government, and you know, I don't know to what extent we were well rewarded, but did we always have a listening ear at Stormont?
Yeah, but we would feel that, to be honest, Newry hasn't got as much as it should have got along the way, and therefore it probably is that sort of self-reliance that has to have had taken place. I mean, even through the chamber things, etc., we would say that like Belfast and Derry would be the two main places to go, the go-to places where there's funding, etc., required. That's not to say we haven't been behind the door asking for it, because and we have. In fact, the Confederation has thrown in a lot of money for local communities. We threw in £110,000 last year alone for local community groups in relation to funding, whether that be through the departments, local councils, big lotteries, John Muir's foundations, a lot of these charitable organisations, you know.
Raymond, without asking you to do a laundry list of what you've supported and got the money, helped bring money in for, broad brushstrokes, the kind of things that exist within the remit of the community association here, Confederation.
The Confederation is basically, it's made up of a number of different parts of it, I suppose, but the main part of it is community development, which is really trying to process that the engagement and help with the engagement where local communities are empowered to be able to draw in services to the local, to help out their own particular communities, you know. And that is the mainstay of the Confederation, in that community development process. We also have a lot of our own volunteering programs. We have a number of older people's programs. We have a Good Morning program, Good Neighbour programs, and we've now just developed a prostate cancer program. We've a lot of programs going on. Community work and education, as I said, and we've also got Ballaball House. It is run as a social enterprise. And
you use a word there, empower.
Yeah.
And development is another word you use.
That's right.
It kind of resonates with me in the notion of, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you give him the means of catching fish,
that's right, true.
You solve the problem for life. That's what you're doing. You're not just handouts here. You're empowering people to be independent of you.
Community development really is based on ethos. It's a ground-up process in the fact that the people that are closest to need know exactly what they need and how to get it. And you'll know this from Africa as well on your trips there. It's the people on the ground who know the best what is required to meet the particular circumstance of local communities. One local community might be slightly different to another, and some might be vastly different. But it's the people on the ground closest to the problem will know how the problem, and it is so all those people need is that empowerment of those people in order to attract and get in touch with the statutory services to deliver those people who are in power then to deliver those services to those individuals.
I want to talk to you. You mentioned prostate cancer there among men, and I want to talk to you about that just ever so briefly, because I am aware I got prostate cancer 2 years ago. Good friend of mine got prostate cancer 4 years ago, Declan McChesney. Declan is now fine. Rowan Hand is now fine. But we're fine because we were assiduous in looking after ourselves, being proactive and not sort of assuming, oh no, we'll not bother checking. Now, we can put a message out here this morning, Raymond, that men of a certain age need to look after themselves.
That's right. In fact, but you're lucky in that respect because most men don't come forward, and that is the problem. It's the problem here you were talking about engagement. Men aren't engaged in health as a rule. They're one of the target audiences for this. And again, this is only a project we've actually got in touch with Prostate UK just very, very recently, and it's just a pilot program for this area first of all to see can this be rolled out further. And we're trying to seek 20 men about the town, as it's called in the TD, 20 men who either have suffered from or could possibly would suffer from prostate cancer, and it's about that sort of the check and etc. But it's also the referral of those individuals onto other services, and that's what it's about, you know. So while we aren't anything to do with health or
no, you're a facilitator.
Exactly, and that's what part of that engagement process is about as well. But this is about a part of the health agenda. But you're quite right to point out men are the worst people that coming forward. Women are much better, and especially older men are even less likely to come forward than younger men.
Close your eyes and it'll go away.
That's the ostrich effect. You know?
At the time I went to check things out, I had no symptoms.
That's right.
Zero symptoms in prostate cancer. It can be. And I remember going down to the Ulster. I said to Mark McAvoy, Mark's a wonderful doctor. I said to Mark, tell me, Mark, who's the best in Northern Ireland in prostate cancer? Now, I'm not rich, I can't afford to go private or anything like that, but I certainly can afford the $100 to go and have an initial investigation. So when I met PJ Keane at the Ulster Hospital, he said, no, Rowan, he said, it's just your age, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, you know, but it's, you know, I had a blood test done in the blood, it's a PSA blood test. Remember that, those 3 words, those 3 letters, PSA, prostate-specific antigen. I said, it's up at 12 and it's not good. I said, it's probably just your age. I said, I want a biopsy done. And he said to me, I said, what would you do? He said, I'd do what you're doing. So as a consequence of that, we were on the ball. And that was the end of private. I didn't have any more private to do. I was back into the national health system, and it looked after me perfectly the whole way through.
Would it be better for not even have to go through that private sector? I mean,
absolutely, if we could.
And in fact, that's one of the issues that there isn't a screening, for instance, for prostate at the moment, you know. So, and therefore, that's something that
and we have a screening system for breast cancer,
right,
as it should be, but we have no screening system for prostate cancer. And the thing about men have said to me, what are you talking about PSA blood tests? I went to my doctor and he refused to do it for me. He said, you're far better off not worrying about it. Men will have it and will die with it rather than die from it. Now that is an attitude that exists in the hearts and minds of some GPs.
Change your doctor, you know.
We want to change that. We want to make sure that you get, and people should maybe bear in mind, that it's not the end-all and be-all of the solution. That all the PSA check is, it tells you some little thing is wrong.
That's right.
And it gives you the heads up on it.
Go
and check it.
For prostate,
yeah, so go and look. That's all it's doing.
But I think that possibly, and if we're talking about it, maybe there should be a screening for
men
over, say, 50 or whatever it will take, you know. Why not, you know?
Yeah. The other thing I found, I didn't, thanks be to God, I didn't need any surgery or anything else, because, you know, whatever. But what I discovered through medical colleagues and friends, there is a holistic approach to it. If you improve your lifestyle, if you balance your diet, and if you take a thing on a daily basis called pumpkin seed oil, that controls the levels within your prostate. And that has been working for me for 3 years. My levels are now down at 5.
Right.
France. So thanks be to
Good.
God for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I'm using my experience to tell people, look,
Yeah.
get on board here. You can deal with prostate cancer if you do not ignore it, and that's
right.
what it's about.
And it's about men coming forward actually, and not being embarrassed about things like this,
Absolutely.
etc. And that's very, very important that happens, you know.
Yeah, it isn't. That's Andrew. Hello, good morning, Andrew. Andrew is one of our studio personnel.
All right.
So listen, we also want to talk today, but let's not forget the prostate thing, because it's very important. And I'm so glad that you're rolling out a program on
It's just
that.
a pilot program at the minute.
Yeah.
We're rolling out, and hopefully with that we'll try to advance. We'll start with 20 men,
Yeah.
and hopefully start to roll out more than that.
Well, if I can say to you, I can speak for myself, but I really feel that Declan would say the same to you. If you need either one of us or the pair of us over to engage with the men at any stage,
Okay.
we'd be very happy to
Together
do
on
that.
that.
So
Yeah.
you bear that in mind. Now, charity registration.
Yeah.
What charities have to register? It's new legislation.
This new legislation actually has been enforced since 2013, but it's really just been empowered now. Effectively, the Charity Commission is the new regulator for the whole charity, community voluntary sector,
Yes.
but especially in relation to charities. So, if you are a charity of any respect, new, old, or whatever, you must register with the Charity Commission.
Yes.
There is a bit of a time frame on this now, in that all current charities, recognised charities, are not recognised at the moment, and I'll just speak of that in a second, but all charities must contact the Charity Commission online and to ensure that they're on a list. There are two types of lists. There's a deemed list, where any charity had previously a HMRC number. That's used to get your charity registration.
Oh,
from.
yes, yeah.
So there's a deemed list, and then there's a list that you're put on that is non-deemed. It means any charity who didn't go through HMRC registration purposes, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But every charity, regardless, must register with the Charity Commission by December 14,
Big or
basically
small.
next month.
And
Big or small, and that's for charities in the future. The first thing they will have to do is register immediately with the Charity Commission.
But that's a good thing. It's a huge thing to do, because people up to now have felt, oh, registration is very complex and it's very difficult. But it seems to be they're making it easier for people.
Well, they are. One of the issues is that, in fact, the Charity Commission themselves. There's been a Charity Commission over in England and in Scotland for a long, long time, but we are sort of behind the curve on this, if for want of a better word. And so there's a mixed match. There's HMRC would know who you've got charity, but only for VAT purposes,
Yeah.
etc. There's also the Company's House would have known people who are applying there for a company limited by guarantee, for instance, so they recognise charities there. But there's an awful lot of community associations and small organisations who wouldn't be registered at all as a charity. And unfortunately, there have been poor charities and bogus charities set up in order to avoid paying whatever means rates or whatever else. There have been issues with that as well. And so this is probably a way of trying to get all charities, regardless of size, registered with the Charity Commission. So that's what the process is about. But it's been happening for a while.
People should take it seriously now and get their act together on it.
Well, they have to register, and in fact, it's very easy to get on to register on the list at least. All it is, there's if you're not, what I would suggest is people go on to the Charity Commission registration on the Charity Commission website, and they have lists there. Go down and check to make sure that you, as a charity, are on that list.
Okay.
If you are not on that list, all you have to fill in is a small online expression of intent form, which no intent question is basically who are you, what you do, what's your contact details. You'll be put onto a charity list, but following from that, then you'll be called forward for official registration, which is a bit more detailed than that.
Yeah, but you can get help with that. There are people out there to assist you.
Well, the Confederation will help. There are actually workshops, etc., which we provide ourselves in the Confederation, but also the Charity Commission provide workshops, some of which are held over in Ballabot House anyway. So as you get called forward, you will be invited to attend one of those workshops, and I would stress to anybody being called forward to try to attend those. Look at the websites, go through their toolkits, the public benefit test, etc., and then if they need further support, get in touch with the Confederation and himself or Lawrence Bradley, our development manager, who you spoke to before.
Absolutely.
So either myself or Lawrence, get in touch with us and we can arrange either a group session or a one-to-one session to give a bit of advice and support.
Okay, Raymond, stay with me, would you? You're able to stay with me. We need to take a break for ads at the moment. We'll do that now. And back with Raymond Jackson, the Chief Executive of the Confederation of Community Groups, with me in studio this morning.
Destination Newry. We're back in moments.
You can find a smile in all directions. A million miles away, right by your side. Take a look around you. It's right here for you. And
The Keys Newry, where the journey continues.
Advertise your business here. Reach a weekly audience of 275,000 people. Be ahead of the rest. Call Damien on 078 08 80 34 75 or 028 308 34 012.
So, you want local Newry and Mourne TV shows on your television? Which video box should you buy? Well, you have two options. Option 1 provides you as long as you have a good internet connection in your home with all the programmes from destinationnewry.com, including
inside the fencing when we're up there. That's such a change. And the dog muck.
Destination Newry.
Radio evolved.
Hello, your weather for today and tomorrow with Destination Newry today.
First, this is Newry News Bite.
Well, what's crack in Newry and Mourne today? We all had a great September weather-wise.
We're going to go straight into today's show with a lively set of tunes from a band called Sun.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Destination Newry.
Tell me the provenance of that. Where did it come from?
Right there, and welcome back to the studio.
Good afternoon and welcome along to Destination Wellbeing. My guest is Hi everyone and welcome to this week's Newry's Loose Women with me.
Well, it's hello and welcome once again to the programme. My name is Tommy Sands.
And the fourth of the house of our God. Praise the Lord.
Philip Rogan, rather, wearing number 19.
Evening, everybody, and you're very welcome to Newry Showgrounds tonight again.
So that's option 1, and to choose this, click on option 1 below, or you can go to value.ie and buy option 1. Option 2 provides you, as long as you have a good internet connection in your home, everything you get for option 1, including all the programmes from destinationnewry.com. Plus, you will be able to add over 1,000 private or public channels at the touch of a button, most of which are free. So that's option 2. To buy, click below and buy option 2, or go to vario.ie and buy option 2. To choose your option, either option 1 or 2, just click on the buttons below, or you can go to vario.ie and click on option 1 or 2. When we receive your payment, we will deliver your box to your home, and all you need to do is plug it in and connect it to your TV and your internet. Any problems? We're here on standby to help.
On hand, Raymond Jackson of the, I was going to say the Jackson family. Well, it's a musical connotation, no doubt. But there we have Raymond of the Chief Executive of the Confederation of Community Groups in studio with me this morning, and we're talking about that confederation. We've been talking about charity registration. If you're interested in that, you talk to the confederation. You're always there, a willing ear. And we're now moving on to talk about the other areas of support you give in our community. There is a thing, volunteering is at the heart of what you do, surely.
That's right. In fact, part of that process is the volunteers, individual volunteering, but also volunteering on behalf and local communities as well. So there's group volunteering as well. But we would ourselves would be a volunteering organisation. We have well over 100 our own volunteers working on different programmes. We've got the Good Morning, Good Neighbour programmes, as I said. We've also got a volunteer committee as well, which is made up of our membership. So we have got up to 12 volunteers to sit on our management committee, all free of charge, time provided as well. But we would also empower. We would support our volunteers through all of our programmes, etc. And we work in line with Volunteer Now, who are also a tenant of ourselves in the Federation of Community Groups.
What is it, Raymond, that drives people into the volunteering sector? Because you, as you say, more than 100 are there, people in the individual community groups, volunteering. Yeah. It's almost flying in the face of the human condition of greed. You're not interested for yourself. Your people are giving all the time.
Well, that's true, yeah. I mean, in fact, that's the way it should be, you know. But as I said, there's lots and lots of people who, but for loads of different reasons. We've on our Millennium Volunteer Programme, for instance, there are young people who it's good to get onto CVs, etc., to have to be a volunteering experience. You've also would have older volunteers who may have suffered from something or other, might have been suffered isolation or anxiety, etc., who want to give something back. There's a myriad of reasons why people come to volunteering, but the altruistic approach is there as well, and that people want to give back. They feel that they have maybe been supported in the past, and for instance, if I'm a volunteer with Bosco GFC, and that's because for all of the managers that put work into me, I suppose, and sort of creating me effectively, and therefore you give a wee bit back to the local lads and the younger fellas coming on. You're not always respected for that, but there you go.
Well, we can choose our friends, but our football clubs are different. Did I say that? Not a word.
That's only in the Shamrocks.
No, the Shamrocks indeed. Shawnee McGuigan never leaves me alone. You know Sean?
I do, sure.
Sean says, hand. He just growls at you. Hand, he said. You were always cantankerous. Everybody in Mary Street went to the Mitchells, but you had to go to the Shamrocks. You had to be different. So, Shawnee, good morning to you. How are you? He's a great character and a great man indeed. But you mentioned the altruism there, doing it because it's good.
Yeah.
It's the seed bed that grew us. It's our mothers and our fathers. It's Rooney's Meadow. It's Mary Street. It's High Street. It's the barracks. It's Linen Hall Square. It's the way we all grew up in Newry.
Yeah, it's all over. As I say, it's not just confined to one particular area. It's throughout. But you'll find in what would be determined as working class areas, there is a very high, strong sense of community based in those areas, you know, and always has been.
And it's a sense of community that got us through an awful lot of economic bad times when almost 30% of our workforce was unemployed.
That's right.
We had to haul ourselves up by our bootlaces. And, you know, suddenly we find we have a community association. Suddenly we find we have Clanry developments and work in Newry. Suddenly we find that the loan sharks are no longer here. We have credit union. Newry should take just a quiet bow.
I think so, but also, Ron, what we need to bear in mind is that there's still poverty and there's pockets of disadvantage throughout Newry. In fact, we have 9 Newry neighbourhood renewal areas in Newry, so there's obviously determined these the bottom 10%, I suppose, of social disadvantage. And
how does that show itself? Now, we have talked in here with the Salvation Army, we've talked in here with the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and we've heard, but as far from your perspective of a community association, how does that present? How do you see that need within Newry? How would you characterise it?
I suppose behind all need, there's different reasons for need and different things, but most of it is actually coming from poverty, effectively. So there's people, even the working poor, as they're called at the minute. If you talk to anybody in Citizens Advice Bureau, for instance, a lot of the people that come into Citizens Advice looking for help and assistance, a lot of people now going to food banks, etc., are actually in work. They might have fell in hard times. There's 0-hour contracts we hear about as well. There's people who aren't getting enough money. A living wage effectively isn't being paid in a lot of areas.
What are we saying? Are we saying that people are in work, they're getting a salary, that salary is used to keep the roof maybe over their head, maybe to put coal in the fire or oil in the tank, and then once that's done,
Yeah, they're struggling.
There's nothing else.
That's right, they're struggling. There's a lot of people who can't get to the end of the month, or they can't get to the end of the week. In Newry, living in Newry, and St Vincent de Paul, people will tell you that as well. So while Newry, in effect, it is an economic success in a lot of ways, and don't get me wrong, that's what we want that, but we can't forget the people who aren't on that ladder, and the people who need support and advice, and that's where the community comes into the place there. That's where trying to get people accessing services which they may be entitled to. Like there's quite, I mean, all this talk you'll hear about people, the scroungers and the dole and all the rest of it. No. Well, there's thousands of people who aren't claiming benefits that they are entitled to. For instance, you know, older people, for people who may be sick and not sure what they are entitled to, etc. So there's lots and lots of services out there which should be those service providers should be engaging better, we would suggest, with the local communities.
You know what's horrifying me is as you talk and I think, what's horrifying me is, now I'm a fairly frugal man. I live carefully. I'm not, I don't stuff myself with food. I don't overindulge in alcohol. I had never smoked in my life, but I live carefully.
Yeah.
And I get a joy out of that. But even living carefully, I'm sure I throw out each week what would keep a pensioner couple for the week.
That's right, yeah.
That's a frightening
I think
thought.
there's something like up to 40% of foodstuffs bought actually is thrown in the bin.
Yeah.
The only issue that is with people who have access to money. If you were hungry, you wouldn't throw it out.
No. No.
And that's the difference, I suppose. There's a lot of people living in Newry and elsewhere who physically can't get the money to go out to buy that food.
Yeah.
And you'll find that's why recently a food bank has been opened.
That's right.
Across around the corner here.
Trust around the corner. The Salvation Army is there as well, giving out food.
St Vincent de Paul
Vincent's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like Vincent's with oil at Christmas. Oil, warmth, Christmas. St Vincent's are synonymous.
Yeah, big issues. And you're saying, so people have to, on very little means, they have to determine what has to get paid next. So that is why these people, you know, you were referred to earlier there about the loan sharks, etc. They prey on people in this area, for instance. Not so much now as they used to, and you're quite right to point that out. But there are some people still there, and I would say that some of the ones that have been in the media recently, you know who I'm talking about, the providers of loans at 1,000 and 5,000%.
Absolutely.
Which they need to be knocked on the head completely, you know.
Well, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the dear Justin Welby, he hit them around the cheeks about it, and then discovered he couldn't do that much because they were locked into the pension scheme in such a way. But at least the whistle's been blown on them.
Well, exactly, and it has been, at least there's some statutory changes taking place there, you know, and not probably as much as we would probably feel that there should be as well, because again, they are preying on people who are caught in the poverty trap, you know.
The poverty trap, the great saint in my life used to be Joe Hughes. The new saint in my life is Brendan Jackson, your brother. The credit union we're talking here. I was a founder member in Newry. Especially if he's anything to do with that Bosco Mitchell's crowd, I tell you.
No, not just the Bosco.
Just the Bosco. No, but traditionally you grew out of the Mitchells.
No. The way I was saying that. No,
Mitchell's grew out of the Bosco.
That's right. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Well, it came from the old Bosco Youth Club, and Bosco, and at the time back in the day, 50 years ago or more, well over that, you were only allowed to. It was for a youth club. So you weren't, when you came 18, you weren't allowed to be a member of it, and there was no club to play for. That's how Mitchell's formed.
Fantastic. So, Shawnee, keep her going there. May I tell the people about it's a scheme that came into being last year. It's just an idea, and it's very, very simple. And it's not. It's called the Winter Warmth Pledge. And what it is, the Queen, God bless her, long may she reign over me, sends me £200 at this time every year for oil. Now, isn't she very decent?
Well, she can afford it.
She can afford it. I hope nobody whispers in her ear and tells her. But anyway, I get it. But in truth, hand on heart, I'm greatly blessed. I don't really, and I stress the word really, need it. Now, if it comes, it's great.
Yeah.
But if I don't need it, I don't need it. Yeah. Now, what has happened, and last year we started it, instead of me keeping it, I signed it over to the St Vincent de Paul. Other people did the same.
Yeah.
And by the end of Christmas last year, the St Vincent de Paul had received cheques and money from individuals contributing to the scheme of 7,500. So that was heat in homes over Christmas.
Over Christmas, it's brilliant, yeah.
So if you know of anybody, or you know of anybody out there who's getting the winter allowance from the government and doesn't really need it, that's the important point. If you need it, hold on to it. If you need it, you can have mine as well, for goodness sake. But if you don't need it, St. Vincent de Paul, they can make good use of it over the Christmas.
Exactly.
And they're so good. There's 40, it was in the paper today, in the Republic of Ireland alone, they'll be visiting 40,000 homes between now and Christmas. If it's St. Vincent de Paul alone, that's not mentioning the Salvation Army.
That's right, yeah.
So the need is out there.
Oh, there's a great need out there, you know. And as I said, no matter about the economic booms or whatever else, and people have done well, I suppose, but there's always pockets there who have not done well, and in fact that is growing at the minute. And I said, even the people, one of the problems is that the living wage isn't payable in a lot of jobs. So the 0-hour contracts is a big issue, and low-paid full-time employment is a very, very serious issue. And there, the people are actually being forced on to seek additional finance through government, etc., etc. It's just that the jobs that they are getting are not being paid enough.
Yeah. I saw, just to take it to another level, and thank God I don't think we have this in Newry, but during the week, the story emerged, it was in the Irish Times, of Mark Burke. Mark was 37 years of age. Mark was homeless, on the streets. The Gardaí said of him, a good and decent man who developed an alcohol dependency. You will recall 3 months ago, body parts were found in a skip in Dublin. Murder was suspected, but no. Mark Burke had gone into the skip at night. That was his, within all of the stuff in a skip, he could dig out, he could burrow in, and he could burrow in and find warmth for the night. On one night he had burrowed in, and the machinery came to work the skip. Mark was killed in appalling circumstances, and his story of the conclusion of that was in the paper this week. That was on page 3, page 4, or 1, 2, it might have been page 4, page 5, page 6, over the page. Brown Thomas of Dublin. Now, I'm not against people being all right, but sometimes there's a juxtapositioning of situations and need that can rip your heart out. Mark, a man, quite honestly, a man I knew, dead in those circumstances. The ad, a page later, Brown Thomas is happy to announce the arrival of our Hermes pushbike, €8,000. Tiffany jewellery this Christmas, €55,000.
Yeah.
We've lost the run of ourselves a wee bit.
I would agree, yeah. And there seems to be, well, even in any recession run, you know yourselves, people will do well out of recession.
Yeah,
there are some people who do
we're
well.
not saying there's anything wrong with wealth. It's good that people get rich. I know good, rich people in this, on the island of Ireland, good and decent people, over the last 10 years have put 10, no, what am I talking about? $750,000 into our African schools. So people use money wisely. And that's what we're talking about.
Well, I say wealth creation isn't the evil, I suppose. It's probably what you do with that. And if you take it back to that film not so long ago, you can only ski behind one speedboat at a time, you know.
That's a lovely one. I like that.
So, like that. But it's what you do with the wealth, I suppose, that's important. As I say, but and then you go back further again, you'll hear that old answer that money is the root of all evil, and it probably isn't. But it's what happens with the money and what people will do for money that is probably created.
Lovely lady in Belfast this week, who'd won the lottery. I think it was 13 million. She said she wanted to do things for young people from all sections of society, which was good.
Brilliant. And she was, her own personal circumstances, she was a lady probably working later on, probably close to the retirement age, for want of a better word, I
She worked in Bannon's,
and wanted
a company we would have known in Newry at one stage.
And wanted then to make sure, because she realised that people that had to work and people were suffering and trying to pay bills, etc., which was brilliant. So therefore, that money is going to go to a good place.
It is. Will you keep in touch with us?
I shall indeed, yeah.
This is your studio. It says on the door, Confederation of Community Groups,
Studio.
Facilitators in the Media. media.
If I can just bring it up,
Yeah.
just very friendly, just to the registration process
Surely,
again, what
surely.
we're speaking about. As I said, it's important.
Registration for charities.
Charity registration. It's just important that everybody, before the end of December, at least gets onto the list for the Charity Commission's lists.
Yes.
After that, we can take it forward after that, but make sure anybody
On the list.
get on the list first of all, and basically it's just fill in an expression of intent, 10 short questions, name and address, etc. Just get onto that list, and then we'll follow it up thereafter.
Yeah.
But it's important to get on that list first of all, because down the line it'll be important if people don't get onto these lists, then they won't get registration numbers, they won't be able to apply for funding, and there'll be repercussions thereafter, you know.
Raymond Jackson, it's a joy having spoken to you this morning.
Thanks very much, Ron.
God
Thanks very
bless
much.
you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All the best to you.
If you want to watch this show from the comfort of your home,